Hey guys, I'm back again and I'm here with my August wrap up. So as you know, August was pretty much a month of relaxation and rejuvenation. Okay, because your girl needed a break of this COVID situation and everything. So we finally decided to take 8 days and go away. So I was reading 2 books and I read 2 books that month. That's all I read. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that because I'm still 6 books ahead, and I feel like there's moments where you need to take like a little break with reading, not maybe read as quickly and as much. What I found is that month of August I was able to read more, even more in depth, because they were both buddy reads. So that was pretty cool. So let's get started. All right, the first one I read was this one, which is The Rib King by La D. Hubbard. I really hate this cover. It's trash. But anyway. So, this book, this is La D. Hubbard's second book. I didn't read her first book, but I actually do have the first book. But when I heard what this book was about, because it really talks about the idea of this white family called the Barclays that basically go to orphanages and get black children and bring them back home and make them work for them. And you have, like, in this house, you have quite a few of them have been brought over and sort of raised there, and, you know, and they live their life out there. So the book is centered around this main character called the Rib King, alias Mr. Sitwell. Now, I have to say, La D. Hubbard really does know how to write. She has a good writing style. But what I had a lot of trouble with was her story. And this storyline felt very much like, I don't really care. You know, like by the time I got to the end of this story, I was questioning, what is it all about? Now, the thing is, she has in here, she has the main character, Mr. Sitwell, who's kind of interesting. And she has this character called Jenny, who's very interesting. And Jenny is this black woman who, in the beginning of the book, works in the same house as Mr. Sitwell. And they kind of had a thing for each other, but nothing ever really happened. But they both really liked each other. And there's an incident that happens, and Mr. Sitwell and Jenny leave this house in separate way and go separate ways. And so the story, The Rib King, focuses more so on Jenny and how she goes from that tragic incident in the house to, I think it's supposed to be 10 years later, her life 10 years later. So we focus on how she's got practically nothing, and she has to, you know, make her life, and she's, you know, struggling and trying to make her life. And within that, you have a lot of little incidents about racism in the neighborhood, that there's sections, you know, where black people really shouldn't go because they risk having problems with racist white people. And there's just a lot of that kind of thing in the book that Hubbard brings out. But the storyline itself is just like, it just doesn't work. And I'm really like surprised. So after I finished this, I put that down. So I'd come back from my holiday, and oh yeah, keep in mind, I had been discussing this with Morgan from Morgan Gale. And I finished it, but Morgan did not finish it. Morgan DNF'd it, okay? Anyway. So I said, let me go get that first book that is by La D. Hubbard that I didn't read and see what's going on with that. So I get the book. It's called The Talented Ribkins. The Rib King. Y'all see something there, like a connection happening? Okay, this book, I don't ever remember it being marketed as a sequel to this book. But clearly it is a sequel. And what threw me, or what made me really believe it, was right here on the cover. Now I'm going to get real close and see if you can see. Right there is a family tree. And at the top of the family tree is the Rib King. So I'm going to have to check this one out and see if reading this one will make me understand better this one. But I have a feeling it's not going to help, just because of the way this storyline went down. So at some point in autumn, winter, before the end of the year, I will pick up this one and see what it's like. But I'm not gonna, if I'm reading it and I'm not really feeling it, I probably will DNF it, because ain't nobody got time for that. So on to second book. So the second book was this one, was Erasure by Percival Everett. So as you know, I read So Much Blue, and I buddy read that one with Patrice Jones. And we weren't really feeling it like that. So we decided to pick up Erasure. So Patrice and I read in depth Erasure throughout the entire month of August, pretty much. I would say, yeah, from like the second week all the way to the end. Now this is not a particularly big book, but there is something, the print is super small. And this book was read to death because, look, I cracked the freaking spine. I was so pissed off about that. Not happy. But anyway. And found 3 typos in here. Yeah. Anyway. So, we started reading this. And, I mean, after reading it over pretty much a 2-week span, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Now, I can't say I understood everything in it, but I understood the global, I would say I understood about 70%. Might be 30%. I was a little bit like, I don't understand this part right here. And this book is sort of like it's about a main character whose name is Thelonious Monk, alias Monksy, and he is a middle class, I would say middle class to upper middle class black man, and he is a writer, and his one goal or whatever is to write good literature and to get that good literature published with the hopes of getting some kind of recognition for it. But as time goes on, what he realizes is that that's probably not going to happen, because he's not writing so-called the authentic Black life book. So what this story does is it follows this main character, Monksy, or Monk, and we see his slightly dysfunctional family life, and we see how he grows up through different vignettes of incidents that have happened that he recollects as he's telling the story, juxtaposed with what is happening now with his family and what's going on with his writing. But there's this idea that it's almost like he is questioning everything now for the very first time to a certain extent. So you get a lot of really interesting little, the way he writes different sentences and things. So for example, he has an excellent way of writing metaphors. he usually uses examples that are just spot on, but that you probably wouldn't think of right off, and I think it's really interesting. I've only read 2 of his books, but I've quite understood that his main characters are like Percival Everett's alter egos, because they often have a similar, each character seems to have a similar personality. This is quite experimental as well, and I'm not even saying that lightly. It is experimental, because he'll do stuff like, you'll just have, you know, a whole scene, a good dialogue and everything, and then he'll write a really weird phrase that has nothing to do with that when you're looking at it, just, you know, the facade of it. But when you look deeper, you'll see that there's something there that correlates to what you just read. So he'll be talking about poets and writers and musicians, and there's a lot of reference to Black writers in here because of the names of the people. They're all like from either the first name or the last name is taken from an African American writer or musician or something like that. He also must have a thing for France, because like in So Much Blue, which was half in France and half in the US, this is all in the US, but he makes a lot of reference to French things. French directors, French films, French expressions. He has a thing for France. But he does a great job with critiquing the publishing world and the literary world and literary prizes. I say definitely pick this one up. It is a wonderful romp, well, I should say a wonderful literary fiction romp with an experimental and satirical twist that you should not miss. I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm hankering to read another Percival Everett. I think I'm on a Percival Everett track. Patrice, she may not be so much, because Patrice is like, this man is challenging, you know, because it's a challenging read. But like I said, I read this over 2 weeks. I've got a few tabs here, but you know what? I am the better for it, you know, taking my time to read Erasure with care. So I'm not sure what I will read next. I know Percival Everett has a new book coming out called The Trees, which I'm kind of interested in just picking that one up. But there's another one called I Am Not Sidney Poitier, and I'm kind of interested in reading that one as well. So stay tuned for probably more Percival Everett here on Brown Girl Reading. That's all that I have read this month of August. Hopefully that wasn't too boring for you. But there were, you know, it was an experience. But this one right here was a really, really good experience. So comment below and tell me what you read the month of August. Was it fruitful for you? Did you enjoy what you read? Let's talk about it. And I'll see you soon with another video. Bye.